time really flies because it's already been 6 months since I got my Bambu Lab P2S 3D printer. And I wanted to kind of look back and share my experience with it over these past 6 months, along with, is it still worth it? Which I love the printer, so my impulse is to say yes, but also a lot of things have changed in the past few months that make the value of the P2S a little more of a gray area than it was before. So first off, the reason I even chose this printer in the first place was that I had a Prusa Mini and its power supply broke and it was just kind of time. That was a 7-year-old printer. It was just time to move on. I had friends who had Bambu printers and every time they showed me their prints, the quality was always pretty amazing and they always talked about how easy the printers were to use. So I knew in my mind when it came time to eventually get a new printer, I was going to get a Bambu printer. And then when my Prusa unexpectedly died, it was kind of a good excuse to get a new printer. I wanted to spend as little money as possible when getting my printer, but there were also a few features that I knew I really wanted. The biggest one being an enclosed printer. I'd only ever had bed slinging printers before, and I really wanted something enclosed just for better print stability because you don't have that wobble anymore, but also just for, temperature control and just there's a lot of benefits to enclosed printers, and I was really curious to try that out. So I was looking at the P1S because it was on sale. It's a really great price. Even at the time I'm recording this video, P1S is at an excellent price. But then I saw the newly released at the time P2S, and it really did kind of seem like the added features to the P2S were worth the price of the upgrade, even though it was more expensive and more money than I was planning to spend. The P2S really is an improved, beefed up version of the P1S. And so that was a little nerve-wracking because I was planning to maybe I could spend $400-ish on a new printer, and then by the time I went to the P2S and then the combo and then you pay sales tax and get a couple rolls of filament, now we're near $1,000. So I actually got really nervous when I bought the printer and ordered it and then canceled the order and then came back the next day and ordered it again because it was expensive. And I'm telling you that now for later when we talk about is the printer still worth it, and we kind of talk about some of the other models that are now available. But as you might know by now, since getting the printer, I absolutely love the P2S. I've had no issues other than every once in a while I have some minor bed adhesion issues. And so one thing to keep in mind is just to keep the build plate clean. Try not to touch it with your hands and just clean it regularly with soap and water and then dry it with a paper towel and you should be good to go. But depending on circumstances, materials, size and style of the print, you might have adhesion issues, especially because this is not an actively heated chamber. So if you need something that requires specific heat, I don't know. There's a lot of factors that play into bed adhesion. I would say I've had 95% success rate. But for the times when I don't have success, I ended up getting these, the BQ build plates. I got one, there's the Cryo Grip, and then this is the Cryo Grip Pro Glacier. So I got this one first because the Cryo Grip is supposed to just be super grippy, and it's very grippy. I've never ever had a print come dislodged from this, and these are fantastic. The only complaint I had with this was I actually don't really like the texture of it that much. I really like the default build plate on the P2S and the texture that it gives to prints. This doesn't quite do that. This kind of gives more of a 3D printed look. And so someone did recommend the Pro Glacier, which was supposed to be more similar to the P2S default build plate. And it's better, but it's not quite the same on that level. Maybe I could just do a separate video just all about my experience with these. They are great though for what I bought them for, which is making sure prints don't come unstuck. But that's the only thing even resembling an issue that I've had. I've done the scheduled maintenance a couple of times. I even made a video all about the first time that I did the maintenance, which is pretty simple. But if you're just kind of trying to figure out, all the finer points of it, maybe that's kind of a helpful guide or a helpful experience if you want it. And the printer's just reminded me a few times since to, maintain a few things. But otherwise, I've had 0 issues with this printer. And I think that's important because I also have the X2D and the H2C, and those are fantastic printers as well. I love them. They're great. But I've had issues with both of them that required a little more in-depth troubleshooting, a little more, kind of disassembly repair, stuff like that. This one, I still think there's so much value in the simplicity of the P2S, and that comes through with the fact that I've had like no issues with it. And I printed a lot of stuff with it, some of which I've shared in other videos. Lots of practical things like the whole Gridfinity system, little, like cases for microphones and different kinds of organizers, racks and mounts for equipment. I showed this in the video I made about supports. This was printed on the X2D, or the H2C, sorry. And this one was printed on the P2S. That is a benefit of having more than one printer is, you can have them all working together to make different parts. But here's that texture I was telling you about on the default build plate with the Bamboo printers that I really like. And it looks awesome. And I've got another project. I found this really cool it's like a honeycomb wall mount organizer. It's like a pegboard alternative kind of a thing. And I think I've got some really fun plans for that. So the P2S and my other two printers are going to be very, very hard at work for the next few days, few weeks, kind of doing that. I'm really excited for that. Now, one thing to note with the P2S is that I got mine pretty early after it was released, so it has the original back panel that the printer came with, which has worked fine for me. I've had no issues with it, but in late 2025, early 2026, Bamboo actually redesigned the back panel, and now it ships with a different one. So if you buy the P2S today, you're actually going to get a new and improved back panel. And basically what that means is it kind of rearranges some of like the exhaust ports and the exhaust connectors, and that makes it a little bit more efficient, but also much more compatible with different like external exhaust things and fans and stuff like that. So it's much more like the back panel on the X2D than it was originally. If you have an early P2S like I do and you want to swap out to the new back panel, you can actually just get a free one from Bamboo on their website. Somewhere there's a way to do that. I haven't done that yet though, because it's fine for me. And that's, the P2S for me is all about knowing what your workflow is. I primarily print in PLA, and most of the stuff I print on the P2S is single color, single material, or very simple multicolor, multi-material. So I don't need to really worry about it. I'm not doing a bunch of ABS where I need, to worry about exhaust a bit more. I'm not doing crazy multicolor stuff. I don't know. The default back panel has been fine for me. Down the line, maybe I'll get the replacement just so I have it, but it's not something that's like huge on my list, but it's something I wanted you to be aware of in case you got the P2S and you want to add some exhaust to it and you're like, this doesn't seem like it works as good as it could. There are better options out there with the updated back panel. And I also did find an improved poop chute from the one that I had originally. The first one I got was just a simple one that you just kind of hang off of a screw on the back, and that worked great. But I found this other one that is a very similar, simple design, but instead it kind of has like a frame that prints around, that you screw around the exhaust, the waste chute opening on the back of the printer. And then the poop chute itself, the bucket or the catcher, just kind of slides on there. So it's much easier to remove on or off, and it stays much more stable in the perfect position once it's on there. So I printed that for the P2S and the H2C. But on the H2C, I printed it in PLA, and since I do ABS sometimes on that printer in higher temperature prints, the part that sticks to the back of the printer did warp out a little bit. It hasn't affected anything, but it's just something to keep in mind if you're going to be using higher temperatures than PLA requires, and you want to use a poop chute like that, or any kind of accessory that's going to be touching the side of the printer. It's probably a good idea to print it in a material that can handle higher temperatures better than PLA can. But the main things I've been printing on the P2S, like I mentioned, are PLA and then also PETG, which is really good. This is a thin little like tray liner, which I really like because the PETG makes it easy for stuff not to stick to. But the quality of the prints, this goes across all the Bamboo printers that I've used, but they're really, really outstanding. And the fact, one of my favorite things with the P2S is the fact that you can get it even with zero 3D printing experience, and within an hour or less, you can be printing something that looks pretty amazing and the quality is pretty awesome. And for someone who likes seeing people get excited about 3D printing and getting into the hobby, I think those early successes are really important. If you have to get a printer and you have to struggle to get it up and running, and then you have to struggle to get prints to look good, it can be very discouraging. You kind of have to power through a lot of things. But if you can start getting things printed early and successful, it's going to be really encouraging, and that's going to kind of like hook you into the hobby a bit more. And then you, if you want, you can go to the more advanced stuff. So that's not to say you couldn't do that with more advanced printers like the X2D or the H series or whatever. You totally can. But those printers just require a little bit more time and effort to really kind of dial things in, even when it comes to like slicer settings and stuff like that. And I've just been using Bamboo Studio, Bamboo Handy with the P2S and all my printers, which I love. I love being able to, you know, slice and send things from my PC here, and then I can continue to monitor the print on my Mac, and then I can check it on my phone if I need to. Like, that has been really helpful. The couple of times that like I've run out of filament or something while the printer is printing, it's really nice to just get those alerts that like, hey, you have run out of filament, and I can go in and switch it instead of leaving the printer unattended for a bunch of hours thinking a print is finished and then realizing it stopped like 6 hours before and you didn't realize it. That's kind of where I come from with the P2S, is as someone who was tired of tinkering with printers and just wanted to print and just wanted to be able to then go and learn to make my own designs more and kind of have fun with that side of things. I just wanted a printer that's going to work, and Bamboo printers in general seem to have a good reputation for that. I've had good experiences with the three that I have in terms of that, but the P2S has been by far the simplest and the most reliable of the three that I have. So then we come to the part of my notes of, is it worth it? And the answer is an easy yes, but there's an asterisk and a but, because in the time since the P2S's release, as you probably know, the X2D was also released. I've talked about this in other videos, so I don't want to totally rehash that here, but the TLDR of it is for $100 more, you can get a very similar looking printer to the P2S that has dual nozzles, an actively heated chamber, some improved components, and you know, that's kind of a lot of features for not a ton of extra money. And so since the X2D's release, a lot of people have been saying, well, the P2S is dead. The P2S has no functionality. But unlike, this is my point of view now, unlike the P1S and the P2S, where I said the P2S is just a beefed up, improved version of the P1S, which it is, the X2D is not just like a beefed up version of the P2S. The X2D is really kind of an entry point to a different type of 3D printing workflow, especially one that includes multi-materials and, you know, materials beyond PLA, PETG, which you can handle those materials in the P2S, but if you're going to be primarily printing with that stuff, you probably want a printer that has more control over its temperature in the chamber. And if you're going to be doing a lot of things that require complex supports, or even, you know, 2-color prints with PLA or something, then the X2D kind of does make a lot of sense. But Bamboo does kind of have a problem because of the X2D, which is that it now overshadows the P2S. And I do think that that is very unfortunate, because the P2S is a fantastic printer. And there's a couple different ways to look at it. There's the features per dollar value, which the X2D just crushes everything, because it is crazy how advanced, how wonderful of a printer you can get for the price. And then there's the value of simplicity and reliability, which is something I really value. But I know when you're shopping for a printer, it's hard to look at like, for $100 more, I can get a lot more features, and so the X2D kind of overshadows the P2S. And so what I'm hoping Bamboo does is they need to solve this problem, because right now the P2S is sort of a printer out of place. If they can lower the price of the P2S at least $100, so now there's going to be at least a $200 price difference between the X2D and the P2S, then I think that gives us a very clear purpose and a very clear place in the lineup. Basically where it was before, it's you want a reliable, solid 3D printer, but maybe you don't want the most entry-level model. You don't want the A series because you want it to be enclosed, or you want a couple more advanced features, but you don't need to make the leap to multi-nozzle, different material, active heated chamber, and stuff like that. So is the P2S still worth it? Yes, absolutely, but you should really look at the X2D just to make sure that that's not a better fit for your workflow. But at the same time, this is my caveat, don't get pulled into features you don't need. I drive a 10-year-old Toyota RAV4, and when I bought my car in 2016, I was looking at the front-wheel drive version, and then there's the four-wheel drive version, and I was like, oh, for a couple $1,000s more, you know, you're already in the price of a car, what's another couple $1,000s at that point? I could get four-wheel drive, and then, you know, no matter what happens, I'm going to be covered. And fortunately, reason took over and I was like, hey, you currently drive a Corolla and you've never needed to drive off-road. You'll be fine with front wheel drive. And in the 10 years that I've had my RAV4, I have never needed four-wheel drive a single time. Even the few times I've gone in the dirt or whatever, not perfectly paved roads, it's been fine for what I need. So it was actually a great thing to not spend the extra money and not get the more advanced thing, which would also then be a whole different system to maintain and take care of and learn. And I think the same kind of applies for 3D printers. It's a great value with the X2D if you think you might actually use that stuff. But if you're spending the extra $100 on not only things you won't use, but also things that do add complexity to your setup, to your workflow, to your maintenance, is that really worth it? Now, the easiest solution is for Bamboo to just lower the price of the P2S, and then there's a very clear, you're gonna have to really want the X2D to pay a couple $100 more for it instead of just $100 more for it. So my primary reason in making this video was to kind of come back and address the honeymoon phase that I had when I first got the P2S. If you watch my unboxing video and some of the early videos I made on it, you can see I'm super excited about it. It's the printer that got me back into 3D printing. And 6 months later, half a year later, has that worn off? Absolutely not. It has gotten me so much more into 3D printing. And prior to the P2S, where I was, even though I had always liked 3D printing, it was really something that I was just tired of. I was tired of messing with, tinkery printers, and I liked having a printer for, very specific needs. When I needed to make a print or repair something or replace something, I would dig out my Prusa, set it up, tinker with it, get it working, try to get the print going, and then put it back away probably for another month or something. Whereas with the P2S, as soon as I got that, it's just like running constantly, and it's been absolutely great. And through the weird situation of having a YouTube channel, I've also then been able to try the X2D and the P2S as well, which are both fantastic printers. But I just do want to re-emphasize that when I was sitting there, biting my nails over what do I spend my money on, the P2S is the one that won out for me, and it's still the one I would choose. I think I would be very tempted if I would go back in time 6 months and the X2D was available. I think I would be tempted to spend the extra money, but I would also then have a panic attack of the price. So I will always have an appreciation for the P2S, and it will always have a very special place in my heart. And it's a printer that I really want to advocate for, because it's such a good entry point into 3D printing. And I think it's the printer that a lot of people can buy and get hooked into the hobby. And all I want is for Bamboo to lower the price to make it a little more accessible and give it a more clear purpose in the lineup. But beyond that, the P2S is an absolutely phenomenal printer, and it is one, even if you do get another printer down the line, it's a tough printer to outgrow. It's more of a printer that will then work alongside whatever printer you decide to add or upgrade to in the future.